Alrighty, so let's continue along with the detailing here, and I just want to fix up one thing I forgot to do at the end of the last tutorial. Just forgot to crease up this edge, so it's Shift E 0.55. And I want to build out this bit of detail up here, and hopefully we can get on to doing all of the panel line cutouts as well in this tutorial. But to start out, I want to get this little cutout done here, and it's not too difficult. So what I want to do is, first and foremost, let's just go ahead and hide these two faces. Okay, Control R, we'll cut a loop through the middle here, and this will just give us like a baseline for where this is going to exist. And what I want to do, where I can see these lines on the reference here, I just kind of want to extend them up until it reaches the edge that we've just cut in. So using our knife tool, so I'll just try to do it by eye, so I think that's around, if I were to extend the line from here, I think that's roughly where it would hit, so I'm just going to click there, C to do a straight cut, bring that the whole way down, and then just do the same on the other side, so just come into here, C, drag that straight down, and I'm going to edge slide this edge into our new cut, and just go by distance. And then, because I kind of want to keep this edge in the middle of this cutout here, so I'm going to slide this edge in instead. So double tap G, slide it in, remove by distance. And then I'm just going to space these out to even it out. And then I just want to flatten out the top because it doesn't really need to be curved. I think it's better if it's just flat. So I'll just use the knife tool and I'll just cut between these points. And I can just merge this vertex at last, like so. Cool. Alrighty. Next thing I want to do, because I want to do an inset on the on these faces here, but I don't want it to inset into the middle. I want this to terminate down at the bottom. So we'd need to do an inset to bounds, right? But we can't do that because all the mesh is connected. So a simple way to resolve this, if we just select these bottom two edges, we can press V to rip the edges. So now just in this area we've separated the mesh. And then if I select these faces, I to inset, and then press B, we can do an inset to the bounds. So I'll just bring that in a little bit so it's got a bit of depth. And then I'm just going to use Alt and S, push that back in, somewhere around like that. And then we can go ahead, and we can fill these faces back in. And I'm just going to go by distance, just in case there's any overlapping verts, which I think there were. And we can just crease up all the edges that need some creasing. Like that, Shift E 0.55. If we look at this. So I don't love the way this is looking, especially at the bottom here, just how you're getting like these really rounded curves at the end. We could, add in more topology and creasing it up, and we are going to in fact do that. However, for something like this, and this is just my personal preference, I think it just looks a little bit nicer if we just double tap G, edge slide this, and then dissolve these. I think it just looks a little bit nicer if it just lays flat in at the end here, makes that little triangle shape. And don't worry, I know that we've now put poles here, but this won't actually affect the shading because it's more of a corner as opposed to anything. So yeah, personally, I just think that looks nice, but you're allowed to do it as you see fit. And then the last thing I want to do is we just need extra support loops running in through here, just so that these aren't so rounded. Just sort of sharpen them up a little bit more. And similar to what we did on the right hand side here, since I know we're going to sort of cover this area up with a pole, with a like tube sort of model, I'm not too worried about just stuffing some end guns into here. So I'm just going to go ahead, hide these faces, Control R, and in the loop just pull this across just to crease that edge up a little bit more, and do the same on the right hand side. Something like that. And then we'll sort of need to do a bit of space and relaxing to clean it up. But you can now see we've sort of got nice hard edges there now. And then just need to fix up the distribution along here. So the way I'm going to do that, I'm just going to select all of these edges. Don't need to do it on the inside. I'm just going to run a relax operation. And I think that should be good enough to keep it nice and smooth. Yep. So yeah, you can see we've got these little pinching artifacts on the interior, and if we were going to leave the design like this, then we'd go through the whole process and resolve it properly. But since I know it's going to be covered up, I'm not too concerned about it, and I don't want to waste more time than necessary because I recognise that this has been a long tutorial series. So yeah, I'd rather kind of be more optimal with these things where possible. And then through here, I just want to go ahead and I might do space and relax for this area. So let's have a look. Space, relax. Yeah, I think that looks nice. Cool. So now we've just got a little bit more detail. And while we're focusing on detail at the back here, there is this little thing here. I don't exactly know what it is, but it's sort of protruding out and off the mesh. I don't think there's any need to model it and integrate it with the rest of the topology. We can definitely just model it as a floater mesh, so to speak. So the way I'm going to figure out how to position this, I'm going to select this back edge, and then Shift S, cursor to selected. And I'm not certain on what the shape of this thing is, but I'll show you, or what I think it looks like in my head at least. Let's go back to global transform. So I'm kind of picturing it as like a square sort of shape, and I'm just going to cut it in. Actually, I'll subdivide the whole thing. A sort of square shape that's got beveled edges. So I'm going to use Control Shift and B, something like that. So this is kind of what I see it as. I don't know if that's correct or or what, but that's just kind of what I'm seeing. And it might actually be a little bit more narrow than this. So what I'm going to do, just make my life a little bit easier. I'm just going to put a mirror modifier on this, enable clipping, and I'm just going to push these in. I think it's a little bit more like that, if anything. And then I just need to get this to align to the proper rotation. So I'm just going to go G, hold down X, snap this to... Sorry, I was holding down Control, I don't know why I said X. And just snap that to that back face there, so now it's like roughly in line with that face orientation. And I'm just going to go to our normal transforms, pull this out a little bit so it's got a bit of depth. And then extrude, push this back on the normal Z, all the way back in. It's going to delete those back faces because they'll never be seen, and I'm going to flip the normals around. So something like that. I might scale it up just a little bit. And I might just actually push it up on the normal Z, X a bit as well. And this looks very, very blocky and not particularly nice to look at. So while I'm at it, I'm also going to go ahead and add a bevel. Actually, before I do that, I'm just going to apply the scale. Then do a bevel around here, just to make it look a little bit nicer. And then I think, can't really tell, but I think it sort of has like an inset and an extrusion to it here. So I'm actually just going to apply that mirror modifier. It's just going to sort of overcomplicate things. So I'm just going to do an inset and extrude this out a bit. And then I think I might bevel these outer edges as well. So just Control and B. And I might actually pull these out just a little bit more. So yeah, look, I don't know what this is supposed to be. I don't know if this is the correct shape. And I'm actually not loving these back edges. I might actually Control B and I might round these out. I might do something like that. I'm just absolutely spitballing this. I don't know what this is supposed to be. I don't know what it's supposed to look like, but I don't know, I kind of feel like that's got some decent visual cohesion with the rest of the model, I think. I'll just scale that up just a little bit more. Yeah, cool. I'm just going to go with something like that, and I'm not too worried about all the n-gons here, so I'm just going to do an inset just to bring that in a little bit. And we can do some very, very subtle cleanup, so I'm just going to use my knife tool, cut this in, and we'll cut these in. Are those quads? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Definitely not, but I'm not concerned about it because those are on a flat face and not on one of the leading edges. So then the last thing I need to do here, we definitely don't need this loop down the middle. So I'm just going to Control X, get rid of that. We can just go ahead and crease up all of the hard edges. So those, not around the back there, around here. Shift A 0.55. And I'm just going to join that in with the rest of the mesh. Cool, so we could probably do with a little bit more support on this edge here, so I'm just going to edge slide this up to about there. My subdiv's not actually showing. Cool, and yeah, I kind of feel like similarly we can probably crease these edges up a little bit as well. So I'll just pull this in. Like so. Cool, alright, very minute detail, probably don't need that much topology on it, but there it is. I think, yeah, I think the back was looking a little bit bland without it. I think that just sort of adds a little bit more character and a little bit more profile to it, so. Cool. We're slowly building this out. We'll do the screws at the end, because we also still need to build out whatever this is. It's like, I guess, like an attachment for stuff on the top of the helmet. That's a technical term. But yeah, I think I'll do the screws at the end. I just don't want to worry about that as of right now. Cool, alright, let's get to doing the details in this section that we've so carefully preserved since the start of the tutorial. I know it probably seems a bit backwards that we did all this hard work at the start and we've just left it there. But don't worry, it is going to come in handy. So I'm actually going to Shift D duplicate this, P separate by selection, and I just want to keep this as a guide mesh. Just in case, because this is a fairly important part of the model. And I'm just going to select all of these creases on the outer edge. Shift D -1, Shift D 1. Just to make sure it completely retains and holds its shape. It should, since there's no connected edges, but just want to be safe. And I might just call this like _inset_shrink. Oops, shrink. Just so I know what it is, and as with all our shrink wrap meshes, I'm just going to put it into bounds. And normally I'd organise all my shrink wraps into a collection. I don't know why I haven't been doing that for this. Shrink wraps just helps organise things, and then I don't need to have them sitting around all the time. Cool, okay. So to do this, I think the easiest way is going to be not using the knife tool, because I think it's just going to be rather problematic. But what I think we'll do instead is I think we'll model this with a separate mesh, shrink it down to that shrink wrap mesh that we just made, so the inset shrink, and I think it should make the whole process a lot easier. So let's go ahead. I'm just going to select this area of faces again, Shift S, cursor to selected, bring in a plane, and let's just go ahead, and I'm going to go into edit mode, and I'm just going to merge everything at center. So now I've just got a singular vertex. Cool, and with that singular vertex, I want to get a shrink wrap, target the inset shrink, and I'm just going to hide the helmet because I don't really need to see it. And let's just start to place all of these, and I want to show on the cage. And so you can see, so technically we tried to move the vertex up here, right? And it's displaying down here with the shrink wrap. So easy way to fix this, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn align rotation to the target off on our snapping. Press G again, hold down Control, and it's not going to work because I can't actually see the shrink wrap. Try it again, hold down Control, still can't do it. Maybe I need this to not be bounds to make this work then. Let's go textured. There we go, my bad. Hold down Control and now it works. And then we can just roughly model out where this should sit. I'm actually just going to put this back to the corner, so it's almost going to be like a similar method of modelling as we did at the start to get this shape. And just bring these around to build this out. So something like that, fill that in. And then, so we're going to need a bit of curvature along here, and the benefit of doing it this way is that between these vertices, I can see that we've got, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we've got 6 edges that already exist on our current model. So I'm just going to cut in 1 extra vertex here, or vertex, sorry. And I'm just going to push this up to just roughly match the curvature of the shape. So I'm actually pushing it up and beyond. And we're doing this because I want to go Control Shift and B. We're going to do a bevel. Just going to bring that out. And that's with 4 segments. So I want to do 5 segments so that we get 6 verts in the middle there. So now that's sort of conformed to the shape nicely. And I'm just going to space those out. So I just want to double check. We've got 6 verts there. Yep. Alright, cool. So then we just want to do the same for the bottom here. So I'm just going to go Control R, add in a vert there. I'm just going to push this up on the Z-axis. So once again, I just kind of feel like this area has got a bit of curve to it. So something like that. Very subtle. So just bring it up a little bit. Control Shift and B. Bring it out. And I'm just going to space these out. Cool, so I think that's looking nice. I've hidden everything. And so what I want to do now, just because you'll notice as we're selecting these, the vertice positions, or the vertex positions, sorry, aren't exact. So to fix that, let's just go ahead and apply our shrink wrap. So now we've pretty much baked the repositioning of the shrink wrap into our mesh, which is what we want. It's just going to make less issues. And then might seem counterintuitive, but we'll make another shrink wrap and reapply it to the inset shrink. Cool. So now we've got this trapeze shape, and you can probably tell I had to take a few attempts at this because I was getting a bit confused as to how to best do this because my 3D cursor's moved here. But what I want to do, so just click somewhere like roughly in the center of where this trapeze is. Okay, we'll go Shift A, we'll bring in a plane, rotate Y 90 degrees. So we're just going to model this trapeze shape separately because I found trying to model it by hand with the vertices is really difficult, and it just ended up looking muddy every other time I did it. So let's start by subdividing this, right? And we can delete these verts on the side here. I'm just going to isolate this. And then we're going to add in 2 extra loops through the middle here. And we can just merge these verts up to make a nice trapeze shape like this. And then we can just delete the edges in the middle here. Fill in a face, and we'll just flip that. And we can just dissolve the remaining vertices. So now we've got our trapeze shape. Cool. It gets a little bit tricky here just because we get a bit of distortion in this shape because it's not perfectly flat, right? It's on a curved surface, it's on an angle, blah, blah, blah. So let's go origin to geometry, just place it in the center, and then I'm going to go selection to cursor to snap it back over to where we placed our 3D cursor. And I'm just going to scale this in to roughly match up the shape. So that's close enough. And then I kind of want to get it so that this back edge is parallel to this edge here. So in edit mode, I'm just going to select this edge, Shift S, cursor to selected. And I can't seem to select the trapeze. And then I'm just going to go ahead, Shift S, cursor to selected to put the trapeze on that edge. And then I'm just going to bring it forward until that back edge is in the middle of the 3D cursor like that. I'm going to use the 3D cursor as our pivot point. And I'm just going to go ahead and hide our shrink wrap mesh. And I'm just going to rotate this just until these lines completely, or these edges, completely overlap. So I think that's now at the same level of rotation. And then I can just press G and realign this trapezium over here. Cool. So at the moment, this is not looking good at all, right? It's completely misaligned with our reference image. It's not looking good. But we can fix that because at the moment it's completely flat to the x-axis, right? Well, more or less. So just unhide everything, hide the helmet again because I don't need it. And so with it positioned here, like this is just, I've just eyeballed this. This is in no exact position. It's just roughly lining up. You know, Shift S, cursor to selected. And then in our snapping, I'm going to select face, align rotation to target. And then I'm just going to roughly place my cursor in the middle of the 3D cursor here. Press G, hold down Control, and that's going to align our trapezium to the rotation of the curvature, which has sort of messed everything up, but that's okay. So I'm just going to go to normal transformations. I'm just going to rotate on the normal Z. I'm just going to try to realign that edge a little bit more. So I think that should be better. And then what we want to do is, actually I'll do this in wireframe mode. I'm going to select the trapezium, I'm going to select the detail that we've been modeling, Control J to join them together, and now we're actually shrink wrapping our trapeze onto the mesh, so it's properly deforming everything. And I don't think, actually this doesn't look too bad in all honesty at the moment. If I do a top-down view, so yeah, I think this looks nice, and I've just gotten dumb luck. I have taken like 3 or 5 attempts at this, so maybe I've just gotten an eye for it now. But notice how, like, on this top-down view, these edges sort of line up more nicely. The top one, not so much, but the bottom one definitely looks nice. And that's something you don't really get on the actual design. So I might just, for argument's sake, what I'm going to do, oops, I'm going to remove that edge because that's a remnant of me practicing. So I'm going to go to normal, I'm going to select this edge here, and I'm going to add a custom transform orientation, just with that plus. And just from a top-down view, I'm just going to drag this down just a little bit on the y-axis. And I think, maybe not. Let's try matching it up to the actual reference and see just what this looks like. So that's in line with the actual reference. And I'm not a fan of this just because you are getting like this mismatch between these edges here. So I'm not even going to do this from any orthographic view. Oh, actually, no, a way we could do this, sorry. Let's select this face and go Shift and 7. And so now we've aligned the viewport orientation to be directly, what would it be, like coplanar to the face. So like we're seeing the camera view directly from the face angle that we've selected. And then if I do this, I should be able to more accurately line these edges up. So just roughly, it's not perfectly going through there. Just roughly like that. I don't know if that's going to work as well as I thought it would. I might drag this down a bit. It's just, yeah, I don't want to make this look muddy is the biggest thing, and I kind of feel like this trapeze isn't looking that nice anymore. Maybe pull this down just a bit. Actually, I kind of feel like one of the problems might be this edge. Let's just drag this up a little bit more. No. I just don't feel like this is a proper trapeze because I don't feel like this is centered to itself. Like, if I draw a line from where I've just placed the 3D cursor, oops. Like, I don't feel like these are centered, but maybe they are. It's pretty close. I just kind of feel like this needs to be moved down or up. I don't know, I can't really get a good read on it. I just feel like this angle at the top here is way steeper than this one down here. But it could just be the angle at which I'm looking at it. Because here it looks okay. And from non-orthographic views, I think it looks alright. Yeah, I'm just going to leave it there. I don't want to waste everybody's time with me just meticulously trying to figure out this one shape. So I'm just going to go with that. It's not exactly in line with the reference image. There's probably no harm in going, in line with the reference image like that. For the sake of argument and making it easier for consistency with everybody following, I'm going to do that. I'm not going to concern myself with it. Sorry, I just get very meticulous sometimes with my modelling and get caught up on details that don't actually matter. Anyway, cool. And what I'm going to do, just as a final touch, I'm just going to go ahead, fill in all these faces as quads, and we can just apply that shrink wrap. Cool, alright. Alt-H, hide the helmet, and I'm just going to go ahead, I'm actually going to, no, I'm not going to delete this guide mesh, but I will turn it back to bounding box because we shouldn't need to snap anything to it. Unhide everything again, and I'm going to go ahead and delete these faces because we don't need them. And we can start to build out our topology onto the rest of the helmet. So the detail that we've just modelled out, I'm just going to shift select and join it in with the rest of the helmet. Shade everything smooth. And now we can start to join everything in. And just for the sake of being able to keep track of everything, as I've previously done, I'm just going to mark the outer parts of these details with sharps, just so we know what to keep track of. So now we can more clearly see it. And have the vertex groups been brought across here? So we've got a group, which we don't need any of that anymore. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add these to a vertex group. So assign these. And then I'm going to grab this inner ring of edges here and assign these to a vertex group. So now we've got this. Bring in another shrink wrap. And we'll shrink it to the inset shrink. And we'll just use the vertex group that we defined, so we're not destroying the entire model. Bring this up and use the cage. Alright, so now we can start joining all this together. Oops. So let's go with that. Start filling this in. So that works quite nicely across the top there. We can fill in a face to connect these together. And what else can we do? Let's fill this in. Sorry, this cage is just annoying me. I'm just going to turn off the shrink wraps. Let's fill that in. And so I can see we're probably going to need an extra loop going through the trapeze here. So I'm just going to cut that in, fill in these faces. And then probably going to need another loop going through the middle here as well. Just going to let us fill those in. And then this face is going to get pretty ugly because that's really sort of distorted around the corner there. Kind of feel like it'd be a lot nicer if that edge was connected there instead. So let's just delete that. I'm going to dissolve that edge. Let's throw 2 loops through the middle here. So actually what I'm going to do, I'm just going to delete this face altogether, sorry. Going to dissolve that edge. I'm going to do 2 loop cuts through here. I've just dissolved everything and redone it just so that those are evenly distributed through the middle, so we don't need to go and do more spacing and relaxing, because I think you're probably sick of it by the end of this tutorial. We'll add those in. Now, I can sort of see, this is indicating to me that we'd want to add another loop in through here, but I don't really want to add more topology into the top here, because I think we've got more than enough. So let's see if we can redistribute the way the topology is working here. Because I kind of feel like that would be a better face to do. But then we are getting a mismatch here. And I don't really want to dissolve any edges because we do need what we have. So let's just look at what's happening. So what have we got here? We've got 6 verts here, and then assuming this is a face, assuming that works, we've got 6 verts here. So this should work. Let's just start filling these in. Okay, it does work. That's all good. And I don't really want to do this, but I don't see a better option. I think we're just going to have to cut an extra loop down the front here. Which might sort of work to our benefit. I don't really want to muck around too much with adding extra loops where I don't need to, but I think this is one instance where we do, because we do want to keep nice curvature at the back here, for the sake of our normal bakes later on. So I'll go ahead, fill those in, and then unfortunately we are going to have to do, I mean we don't have to, I just do this because I like having, for the most part, I like having nice looking topology to display. So I'll just do a space there, and then let's just have a look. What does a space look like through here? I don't love how it sort of stretches out those faces there. What about just a relax? Okay, yeah, I might just do a relax between these points. Oops. Just sort of even out the look a little bit there. But I think for these edges here, I might do a space. Yeah. So select down. I don't want to do a space there. Actually, how's this gonna... Yeah, that works well. Don't want to space that one because that's a holding edge for us. So we'll just leave that as is. Oops, and then select that, space those out. Okay, in doing that, I've just sort of noticed this is sort of screwed up something here, or maybe these aren't completely straight. Yeah, something's not really sitting right with me there, so I'm just going to go ahead, G-stretch, straighten that up, cool. I do know I need to come back to that, because I recall in an earlier tutorial I did realise the fact that there was a gap in the visor, I think. Yeah, big gap there, but I'll come back and address that at the end, because we'll do a final quality pass. Cool, so I think that's just helped even out the distribution of everything. And I don't need these sharps anymore, so I'm just going to go Shift-G, Sharpness, Shift-E 0.55, Control-E, and Clear Sharp. So now those are nicely creased up. And fortunately with our shrink wrap, it should all be nice and flat still. Yep, so we can see it's sort of poking up. That's just because we've creased them, but that's the type of behavior we expect from that area. And before we apply the shrink wrap, I just want to get our insets in place. So I'll just select these. So we'll do an inset. Give them a little bit of depth there. Just like that. Then we'll go ahead, Control-A to apply the shrink wrap. And then I'm just going to use Alt and S. Push these in on themselves just a little bit. And then to help with the inner edge, I'm just going to do another inset to create that support loop. I'm just looking at the trapezium shape there because I can see it's sort of starting to clip in on itself almost. Actually, sorry, with the inset still selected, I'm just going to go Shift-E -1 because we don't want to crease up the inner edges. And then we can just do some creasing on these edges here, just so we can hold the shape. Shift-E 0.55. And let's have a look. We might need to do a little bit more work to make these work nicely. So that's probably just getting sharpened up a little bit more than I'd like. So I'm just going to go ahead and space these out. Cool, that's looking a little bit better. And then these edges here, I don't think they're too bad. I don't think that's too bad there. You know what? I think we can get away with that. My only gripe here, just because we tried to inset two things at the same time that are of completely different size, I just feel like the inset on the trapeze is way more prevalent than this big shape here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select that inner edge of creases. I'm just going to do an edge slide and just push it into where we've got the inset. Just dissolve by distance. And then I'll just redo that inset for that supporting edge loop on the inside. So just inset, push that in. And I just want to check that that inset's not destroying our curvature, which is kind of hard to say with the lack of creasing. I'm just going to check to see what edge rail looks like. Yeah, okay, I'm definitely going to do edge rail. I think it keeps the shape a little bit better here. Ooh, maybe not. I'm going to leave it off. We'll see what happens. Actually, sorry, while it's still selected, Shift-E -1. And then I'll just go ahead and fix up these parts that aren't creased. Shift-E 0.55. Yeah, okay, I think having edge rail turned off worked out fine. And yeah, I think that just looks a little bit better in terms of the creasing. Nice. All right. So we're finally getting some detail into all of this. It's looking good. It's looking more like a proper model. Sorry, I know we didn't get quite through as much. I did say that I wanted to get into doing the panel cuts, but it just took a little bit longer to get this part sorted than I thought. But it's looking good. Hopefully you're proud of what you're getting so far. And in the next tutorial, I promise we will get those panel cuts in, because I know that's a big part of this model. And we can just start to slowly chip away at doing all the final little bits and pieces. So yeah, I'll see everybody in the next one.